Hello and welcome to Talk About Drama, where we talk about what's hot and what's not in the drama world. And today we're going to talk about Love Submission, the currently airing Chinese drama starring Zhao Lucy and William Chen. And honestly, I've caught up to episode 24, which I believe is the latest one, and I really didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I did. Because I remember watching the trailers and it kind of looked like every other modern drama where the girl and the guy, they're together, but then something happens, they break up, and now like the guy's all sad and wants her back and something like that. And they have like a very high profile marriage, and Zhao Lucy hasn't really appeared in such roles before. So I was a little curious and I clicked on episode 1 and I didn't even know where the first 6 episodes went because it just kept on playing back to back. And the only reason why I even stopped is because I had work to do. So I had to stop and get back to work. And then obviously I started watching it again and I binged it in like 4 or 5 days. So I'm not complaining and I really like what they've done with it. Because yes, I completely understand. The story itself is like paper thin and it doesn't really have that much substance. But what I really appreciate is the way they've opted to put characters in the forefront and not focus too much on the story, because they've built the whole thing around characters. So technically it's a character-driven story. And I think the best thing they could have done and the best thing that they did for themselves is the opening scene was amazing, because you're seeing Shu Yen as a child. She's barely 18 and she's reclaiming her identity. She's shedding off her skin as Chao Yen. So she's no longer the child that used to crave for her parents' love. She's no longer the neglected daughter. She's been reborn from the ashes of Chao Yen and now she's Shu Yen. She wants to be confident. She wants to do something for herself, for her grandmother, and she wants to stop caring for her family, who does not reciprocate her feelings and often end up neglecting her. And throughout the series, like, we see Shu Yen try and gain that confidence in herself, and the whole thing comes crashing down when Shen Haoming enters the picture, because now she wants that love, that affection to come from that one person. She wants to build a family with him, but in order to do that, she has to once again shed her skin, and instead of being Shu Yen, formerly known as Chao Yen, she has to be Shu Yen completely. So she completely erases her background, hires actors as her parents, and basically creates a fake background for herself. And she's smart, like, she's a hustler. That's how she survived in the city for so long. That's how she's reached where she is today. And there's no doubt, like, if she wants to do something, she will put her heart and soul into it. But it's the way you see her try and reason with herself that everything's going to be okay. At the end of the day, whatever lies that I tell, she knows it is going to come crashing down. And a lot of times she realizes that, you know, this sand castle is just about to be toppled. And when the big waves come, everything just washes off. And that's like when you reveal the debris, the emotional devastation that's happened. But what I really liked is the way you can see the change in Shu Yen, like, as a person, the way she dresses, the way she does her makeup. When she was working as a planner, her makeup was still light, still youthful, and her dressing sense, obviously, she wore comfortable clothes. But the moment she transitioned to being Shen Haoming's fiance, Shen Haoming's girlfriend, she did these winged eyeliner looks, which they looked good. I'm not saying they look bad, but that's not Shu Yen that we saw in the beginning, because she's trying to make herself look more mature. She's wearing she's wearing these elaborate hairstyles, whereas in the beginning she had these like really frizzy hair because she didn't have the time to go to the salon and get it done. And forget time, she didn't have the money. So she's trying to fit in and she's trying to make herself look more mature than she is, because she needs to have that air of elegance, because she's supposed to be the daughter of intellectuals and she wants to play that part to the T. So she changes the way she looks, she changes the way she talks, and she changes the way she does her makeup, really. And difference is noticeable, especially when Shu Yen and Shen Haoming's relationship breaks down and Shu Yen angrily wipes off her makeup, like the anchor makeup, which is essentially her mask, and she is barefaced for the first time. She's facing herself in the mirror and she's understanding that, you know, it's going to stop. It can't go on for any longer. And then later on, when we see her, the exaggerated eyeliners, they go away to an extent, and she's back to being the Shu Yen, the planner person, rather than being Shu Yen, Shen Haoming's wife. And another thing I really appreciate and I really cherish is Shu Yen and Chao Ren's relationship. Because how many times have we seen sisters being pitted against each other simply because their parents completely messed up their childhood? But over here, Chao Ren, she's basically like a blank canvas. the only thing she cares about is, this is my little sister and I need to protect her. And she is naive to an extent, but I think it also comes from being sheltered by her parents from a very young age, being pampered, because I'd imagine her parents pouring all of their love in this one child, but then they obviously wanted a son. Because, China used to have a one-child policy for a very long time. So this is probably one of the reasons why most Chinese dramas, you don't see siblings unless, like, they're either twins or they're, like, step-siblings. So I'd imagine Shu Yen's parents didn't register her birth because of that reason. So she's technically not in the household register. And later on, when Chaolin got to know that, I have this little sister, she went ahead and protected her. And there was never a rivalry between the two sisters, because technically Shu Yen suddenly showed up out of nowhere and Chaolin had to share her love with, like, this little child, but she didn't have any resentment towards her. And Shu Yen, on her part, she didn't resent Chaolin for, like, hogging all of her parents' affections, because she knows that it's her parents that are deciding to put their affections on one child. And in a way, she might be a little jealous of Chaolin, but she's not projecting that jealousy onto her. She understands it's not her fault. She just wants a clean break from her family because she no longer wants to be a part of that circus, which I completely understand. And in the beginning, I was a little frustrated with the way Chaolin kept on burdening Shu Yen with her requests. But as time went on, it actually ended up being something good for Shu Yen, because she really did need to open up to somebody. And Chaolin is the kind of person who, once she's on your side, she would be on your side unconditionally. And we see that so many times when she's there for her sister, breaking free of her defenses, making her smile and just being there for her. And it's precious because, like I said, there's so many times when sisters are pitted against each other. There's this whole betrayal and jealousy and fight for parental affection, which is completely unnecessary, because at the end of the day, the fault mostly lies with the parents. And Shu Yen understands that, and she tries to make her father see reason multiple times. When she realizes that, there's no reasoning with this person, she breaks free and she decides to have a clean break, which I appreciate. Like, kudos to her. And in the beginning, I really, really enjoyed watching the swan dance between Shen Haoming and Chao Yan, because I think all of us realized quite early on that the whole Shu Yen's parents on intellectual charade was a smokescreen that was only for Shen Haoming's parents, and he obviously knew about the whole thing from, like, a long time back, because him taking an interest in Shu Yen when she's talking about how she likes the agave flower because she can manipulate it to grow the way she wants it to. And that is basically Shen Haoming. He's manipulating Shu Yen from behind the scenes. He's letting her lie. He's letting her fall into this rabbit hole just so he can control her, because this is his insurance policy. This is a house of cards and he has the bottom card, so if he pulls it out, the whole thing falls down, and he knows that. And in his mind, that's the reason why Shu Yen would never leave him. I think that's one of the reasons why he's so nonchalant when he's treating her, like not calling her back, suddenly vanishing off the grid even though it's a birthday, and suddenly becoming hot and cold because he knows that she won't back off from this marriage. So to him, she would always be there no matter what he does, and she's basically a foregone conclusion, which is a very shitty thing to do. And one thing I would really like to say this, I like Shen Haoming as a character, because imagine having so much intellect that you would think 10 years into the future in terms of like how the property trends would develop within the next 10 years. But then as a spouse, he's such a wrong choice, because throughout the relationship, Shu Yen is the one who's been doing the heavy lifting. She made time. She left her ego at the door when she stepped into his house. She did everything that was asked of her. And this guy, he's letting his ex's sister cling to him like an octopus. And then he ignores his wife, by the way, not fiance, not girlfriend, wife, for the sake of his ex's sister. And then he has the gall to be all righteous when she demands a divorce. It has to be mentally taxing to be with a person like this. And probably because of this, I prefer Jiang Liang. Like, just because of this, because even with his old playboy persona, at least he's upfront with being who he is. Unlike Shen Haoming, who likes to scheme in the dark and then suddenly proclaim his love for you. But I did like the push and pull between the both of them. But I do have some mixed feelings about the way they handled the whole Shen Hao-chun thing, because on one hand, I'm glad they didn't make a big deal out of it, because he's basically his younger brother. And on all counts, Shen Hao-chun, he's completely blameless in the situation. And if anything, he is feeling the brunt of his parents' neglect, just like Shu Yen did. And I'm glad that they bonded. And I'm also glad that Shen Hao-chun is basically her biggest defender in the Shen household. But what I'm not happy about is the way they handled the whole reveal with Shu Yen. Because imagine finding out your husband has a whole child from his previous relationship. and finding this out from a person who's been uncomfortably close to him for like a really long time, a person who's completely given up on boundaries, and your husband is doing nothing to reinforce them either. And I think they swept it under the rug way too easily, because all of the shit that Fang Lei pulled is like batshit crazy. And yes, she is a little bit gone in the head, because I think she's substituting her sister's love with like Shen Haoming. And I know it sounds way more messed up when I say it out loud. And in her mind, it's like it's either him or it's nothing. And she's going to crazy lengths to do that. And even that secretary guy who's now suddenly a turncoat, which I'm a little bit in doubt about, because I think it's probably Shen Haoming planting his agents and playing turncoats. But if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to be really disappointed, because what was the whole point of it? But yeah, it was swept under the rug way too easily. And Shen Haoming, no matter how regretful he is, he still not understood the mistakes that he made. And everything he's done up until this point to try to win back Shu Yen has been like a grain of sand in a desert. Nothing. And for me, I would be happy if Shu Yen ends up being like a boss of her own company, but like by herself and not with Shen Haoming, because honestly she doesn't really need him at this point. It's more like he needs her, and I think he needs to realize that. And I like the way Shu Yen pulls him down when he's trying to be arrogant, like when he wanted her cooperation for reeling in the Russian couple. He tried to be all arrogant about it, but Shu Yen was like, you need my cooperation, so you better ask me nicely. And then he like uncrossed his legs and asked her nicely and politely, and I really like that. One thing I also like that Shen Haoming's mother realized that the part of the reason why Shu Yen lied about her family's background was her. Because if she didn't judge her from the beginning, if she didn't make her life miserable from the beginning, Shu Yen wouldn't have needed to prove herself, which I think is a callback from when she was a child. Because we've seen her in the beginning fighting tooth and nail for her parents' affections, and she didn't get that. And with Shen Haoming as well, with his family, she fought tooth and nail. She did everything she could just to get their affections. And that was basically her backtracking and going back to her Chaoyan ways. But once she broke free, she realized that this can't go on, because her grandmother didn't come to her wedding. Because she knew that the moment her granny would come, she would realize what Shu Yen is doing and she would put a stop to it. And she didn't want that. So in order to go and fulfill her dreams of being married to a person that she loves, she had to basically freeze her granny out of her own wedding, which was one of the saddest points of the series. And I'm glad that Shu Yen realized that she sacrificed so much for this person, and in return she really didn't get anything. And don't get me wrong, Shu Yen isn't blameless in the whole thing. Like, she wanted that person, she falsified her background, she is complicit in the whole scheme, and when it came to break free, she did, and she realized her part in it. And I'm glad at least she was able to wake up and understand that this cannot go on. And I like the confrontation, because Shu Yen, her personality is not to scream and shout. So her silently asking Shen Haoming, what exactly have you done? Do you even love me? Was her personality as somebody who's weathered so many storms, who's been beaten down to a point where she doesn't really have it in her anymore to scream and shout. And when the answer is no, she would try once, because she's invested affections in this person and she wants to make sure that it plays out till the end. But when Shen Haoming rebuffs her in like the worst way possible, which I really wanted to hit him over the head when he was doing that, is what the hell, man? She lied to you, but you also lied to her. Like, the entire time he had under surveillance. And I'm glad they didn't go the whole forceful love thing, because Shen Haoming mellowing out and basically doing stupid things to gain back Shu Yen's affections was actually a very welcome thing in a world where it doesn't take long for love to turn toxic and the male lead to basically be all pushy and pully and forceful with the female leads in the name of affections, which I'm glad they're not doing it up until now. I'm not sure what happens in the future, but up until now, it's still going well. I'm not saying Shen Haoming is a green flag, he's not. But at least he's not a black flag, so small miracles, I guess. And I am decently enjoying the recent episodes, even though they feel a little bit of a filler. But I do like the way we're watching their journey as like individuals, because Shu Yen trying to find herself was a very necessary step for her from like breaking free of the influence. But the whole streaming thing was a little out of place, because this person has worked as a planner. She does have connections, and she's managed this whole show where it was related to food. And we did see the host, like the previous host, Sun Ziwei, she was working outdoors as like reviewing restaurants. So it wouldn't have made more sense for Shu Yen to start from scratch creating one such show for herself, like a one-woman show. Because she does have contacts, she does know restaurants, and it would have probably been easier for her to go and set it up by herself, minimal capital, instead of relying on other people and going into something that she absolutely knows nothing about just because she wanted to be on camera. I think it's relevant to the plot because they wanted her to realize that Shu Yen doesn't really want to be in front of the camera. It was just because she was an anchor that she wanted to sort of have an extension of it in like a home shopping network host. But when she realized that, on camera is not really her personality, she decided to go back to being in a supporting position, which I kind of appreciate, but then it didn't. Yeah, it's just the little things really. And I know, I nitpick. I'm really happy watching her understand herself for once, stand up for herself and build up something for herself. Because tomorrow, if anything happens, she doesn't have to be at the whims and fancies of her husband or anybody else. And kudos to her for that, really. And hopefully they keep up the whole Shu Yen wants to be a professional and wants to be independent thing until the end, and not make her regress back to the role of the lady of Shen family. Because at some points it just see that, she was being a plus one. That was not the role of a lady of the house. And I do want her to stand up for herself in front of Shen Haoming's parents and establish herself as a person rather than somebody that Shen Haoming is associated with. And I think we'll reach that in like the final episode or so. Until then, I think it's just better if we just enjoy this journey. And I think I'm just happy as long as they don't make the sisters turn on each other and they don't make too many leaps of logic like they have been recently. And I'm just happy seeing Chaolin and Shu Yen just live out their lives, really. Because I remember the name of the original novel was like Da Chao, Xiao Chao. It's basically the tale of two sisters. And they're trying to overcome their weaknesses, establish themselves. And I'm glad Chaolin is also understanding that she needs a proper foundation in order to build up her career. And I like the way she's not being browbeaten and she's not taking the whole thing in like a negative connotation. Like, yes, I didn't get to complete my uni, but I can always go back. And she makes an effort, just like her sister, to go ahead and do it rather than sitting around and daydreaming, which I actually do a lot. And it's commendable. And for Chaolin to come from a small town, from her parents who are up in arms if anything really happens to her, and like a moment for her to break free from everything and decide that, what, I don't just want to be somebody's wife, I want to be a person, and understanding what she needs for it and going for it at like full speed is, again, commendable. And really rooting for her and Yu Yiming, even though we didn't really see that much of them. It was a little random, but I did enjoy the scenes that they had together. And Wan Peng, she's been one of my favorites, and I really enjoy watching her and Zhao Lixi because they do look like sisters and they do behave like sisters. Because Chaolin, even though she's the naive one out of both of the sisters, she does have the aura of being like the elder sister. She's dependable and she's the ground that holds Shu Yen together and basically is a compass for her, because she had the chance to really expose Shu Yen in the beginning and destroy her dreams of marrying into the Shen family, but she decided to walk away. She's like, I'm not going to be part of your circus. And I think that's the moment where Shu Yen started to accept this eccentric big sister, and slowly the walls went down, and now they have a really good working relationship. And in all, I'm actually quite happy with the way they've developed the whole thing. I'm not sure about the whole business angle thing, but I'm glad that, characters aren't just caricatures, even the crazy ones. They do have motivation, and for one, I'm glad that they didn't start with the wedding scene. They started with Shu Yen taking back her identity, and then throughout the series we see her lose that identity once again, but then at the junction where she has two choices, she decides to walk the road less taken and she decides to regain back her personality as Shu Yen. And it's the way that her character has been built, and it's the way that we've been seeing her for so long. And I like the way they showed us Shen Haoming and Shu Yen sort of build up this whole thing. You know that they're both playing a role. It's very clear. But when the masks come down, it's a very different story. But they still are the same people. And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And I'm really enjoying the whole Shu Yen scheming against people and coming out on top. And I must say, Zhao Lixi, she really suits this role. I really like the way she has the whole news anchor voice. It's really soothing. And the dictation is actually so good. because I'm not a Chinese speaker, so I have no idea if it's like the proper Mandarin dictation, but to me it sounds good enough. And I think Zhao Lucy dubbed herself, because this drama was supposed to be airing last year and it's been done for quite a while. They just airdropped it. But yeah, I think she dubbed herself. It sounds really good and I'm enjoying the whole thing, really. And I think the first 12-15 episodes were well done, actually very well done. Even though, like I said, the story itself is not really that much, but I like the way characters aren't 2D, they're 3D, and they do have motivations, they do have a purpose in the story, and they do build around them, and hopefully they keep up the momentum, because it's 32 episodes and hope it doesn't crash and burn, basically. They give us a happy ending and they give us enough time to see that happy ending. It's not like a last moment thing. So hopefully we do end this drama on a positive note, and I will follow it, probably binge it, and probably talk about it once it's finished airing. But yeah, just give me the good stuff that you gave me in like the first 12-15 episodes and we're good to go. And just please don't make my characters backtrack and erase all of that character development that they've done over such a long time. And please, I'm genuinely praying they don't turn the sisters against one another. And if you haven't had a chance to watch it, if you're hesitating, please go and click that play button. I can guarantee you're not going to regret it, and you will probably binge the first 6-7 episodes like I did before you realize you do have some work to do. But yeah, that's my first impression of Love's Our Mission, and I hope you guys also had a fun time watching it. And I would love to hear about your experience with the drama, especially if you read the novel or if you've watched the movie, which I believe is adapted from the same novel, and it stars Zhao Ling and Xinzhilei, I think. But it's not really a happy story for the sisters, I think. And I haven't watched the movie, but I have watched the trailers, and you can reach out to me on Instagram or on Twitter. My ID is talk_about_drama. Talk About Drama is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Amazon Podcast, and Audible. And from all of those platforms, I think you can leave me a comment on YouTube and Spotify. So do let me know, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, I hope you're having a good week. Ciao.